What if everything you thought you knew about Muammar Gaddafi was carefully crafted misinformation? To many, the name Muammar Gaddafi immediately evokes images of a ruthless dictator, a man whose reign was marked by oppression, terror, and the stifling of liberty. This is the narrative that's often presented by Western media, and it's one that's been accepted by the majority. Born into a Bedouin family in 1942, Gaddafi rose to power in 1969 through a bloodless coup, overthrowing King Idris and establishing the Libyan Arab Republic. His leadership was marked by a strong anti-imperialist stance, and he became a figure of contention on the global stage. Under Gaddafi, Libya was often painted as a pariah state, a rogue nation that threatened the stability of the world order. His support for militant organizations, his alleged involvement in acts of terrorism, and his pursuit of nuclear weapons were all highlighted as hallmarks of his dictatorship. This portrayal served to vilify Gaddafi, making him a figure of fear and disdain in the eyes of many. His eccentricity and flamboyant style only added fuel to the fire, allowing for a caricature of a madman, a dictator, a villain, to be etched in the global consciousness. Gaddafi was depicted as a ruler who oppressed his people, violated human rights, and clung to power by any means necessary. And let's not forget the infamous Green Book, Gaddafi's political manifesto, which was often dismissed as the ramblings of a madman. His vision of a society without political parties or paid employment, where power rested entirely with the people, was seen as an unrealistic utopian dream, a farce to mask his authoritarian rule. So, the narrative was set, the image was cast, and the world saw Gaddafi through a lens provided by others. But what if there's more to Gaddafi's story than meets the eye? What if we've been seeing only one side of the coin, one brushstroke in a complex painting? As we delve deeper, we might just uncover truths that challenge the accepted narrative and shed light on a side of Gaddafi that's been kept hidden from view. Behind the Western narratives, Gaddafi implemented policies that were revolutionary for Libya and Africa. To begin with, Gaddafi introduced free education, making it accessible to all. Literacy rates soared from 25% to 83% under his regime. But it wasn't just about numbers. His vision was to create a society where every individual, regardless of their social standing, could contribute to the nation's progress. The idea of free healthcare was another radical policy implemented by Gaddafi. This wasn't just basic healthcare, it included advanced medical treatments and procedures, all free of charge. The life expectancy of Libyans increased significantly under his rule, a testament to the effectiveness of this policy. But perhaps the most controversial of Gaddafi's policies were his economic strategies. He proposed the creation of a single African currency backed by gold, known as the gold dinar. This could have shifted the global economic balance, as this would mean that countries wanting to buy African resources would have to do so using this currency. In essence, this would have put Africa at the center of the world's economic stage, a position that could have threatened the dominance of Western economies. This may not seem like a threat to you and me, but to the powers that be, the idea of a prosperous and self-sustaining Africa was not just a threat. It was a danger that needed to be curbed. The narrative that Gaddafi was a tyrant suited the West perfectly. It overshadowed the radical policies he implemented, policies that could have transformed Africa into an economic powerhouse. But these policies didn't fit the Western agenda, and so they were conveniently brushed under the carpet. Could these policies be the real reason behind Gaddafi's downfall? It's worth thinking about, isn't it? History is often written by the victors, and sometimes to see the full picture, we need to look beyond the accepted narratives. The West had more than one reason to orchestrate Gaddafi's downfall. Now, let's dive into the concealed depths of this narrative. The West, notably the United States and its allies, had vested interests in Libya's oil reserves, one of the largest in Africa. Gaddafi's nationalization of oil companies posed a significant threat to these interests. He wanted to keep the wealth within his country, to support his people. The West, on the other hand, saw this as a threat to their economic hegemony. But it wasn't just about oil. Gaddafi had plans to create a single African currency backed by gold, which could have challenged the dominance of the US dollar and euro. This was a potential economic game changer that could shift the balance of power from the West to Africa. Gaddafi's vision was of an Africa free from Western economic control, a vision that was not well received by the West. The political reasons were equally compelling. Gaddafi, a strong supporter of Pan-Africanism, was a powerful voice against Western imperialism. His influence in Africa was growing, and this was perceived as a threat by the West. They feared an Africa united under a single banner, a banner held by Gaddafi. The narrative was carefully crafted to portray Gaddafi as a ruthless dictator, a narrative that was widely propagated by Western media. He was painted as a man who had to be removed for the sake of human rights and democracy. But was this narrative a smokescreen to hide the real reasons for his downfall? Gaddafi's policies were indeed controversial, and his rule was far from perfect. However, many of his initiatives were aimed at improving the lives of his people and creating a stronger, independent Africa. These initiatives were seen as a threat by the West, and this, arguably, led to his downfall. So we must ask ourselves, was Gaddafi's downfall a result of his policies rather than his dictatorship? As we peel back the layers of history, the answers we find may challenge the narratives we've been told. Gaddafi's success could have had far-reaching implications for Africa. Now let's delve into this statement to unravel the potential impact on the African continent. Muammar Gaddafi, the controversial leader of Libya, was more than just a dictator to many Africans. He was a champion of African unity, a proponent of Pan-Africanism, and a benefactor who had the vision of a United States of Africa. His dream was to create a single African military force, a single currency, and a single passport for Africans to move freely around the continent. Gaddafi's policies, if successfully implemented, could have led to a self-sufficient, united, and powerful Africa. A continent free from the shackles of neocolonialism, able to negotiate on the global stage from a position of strength, and not as a fragmented set of countries often at odds with each other. The West, particularly former colonial powers, might have viewed this as a threat. A unified Africa, led by someone who had consistently opposed Western interference, could disrupt the established world order. Gaddafi's vision clashed with the interests of those who profited from Africa's division and dependence on foreign aid. Moreover, Gaddafi was using Libya's oil wealth to challenge the dominance of the US dollar in international transactions. He planned to introduce the gold dinar, a single African currency made from gold, a true sharing of the wealth. This move could have shifted economic power away from the West towards Africa, a shift that many believe led to his downfall. In a continent plagued by poverty, corruption, and civil unrest, Gaddafi's policies offered a different path. Free education, healthcare, and financial support for housing were not just dreams, but realities in Gaddafi's Libya. Had these policies been allowed to flourish across Africa, the continent could have become a beacon of social progress. Could Africa have been different today if Gaddafi's policies were allowed to succeed? It's a question that urges us to challenge the accepted narratives and explore the possibilities that have been lost in the sands of history. It's time to challenge the conventional wisdom and ask if we've been misled by the Western narratives. So let's recap. We've walked through the lesser-known policies of Muammar Gaddafi, a man often painted with a broad brush of tyranny. However, beneath the surface, we find a leader who championed free education, health, and an economy that sought to empower its citizens. We've delved into the shadows of the orchestrated downfall of Gaddafi, a series of events that were not as they seemed. The West, threatened by Gaddafi's progressive policies and his potential to disrupt the economic balance, played a pivotal role in this narrative. We've examined the impact on Africa, a continent that could have undergone a significant transformation under Gaddafi's vision, a vision that aimed at unity, autonomy, and prosperity. Now let's take a step back and look at this from a new perspective. History is not always as clean-cut as it's made out to be. It's a complex tapestry woven with threads of fact, fiction, and often strategic alterations. We must question the narratives we've been fed, not to undermine the atrocities committed, but to understand the full scope of the story. Gaddafi was not a saint, nor was he the devil incarnate. Like any historical figure, he was a complex individual with accomplishments and failures. It's our responsibility to delve deeper, to seek out the truth, and not merely accept the prepackaged, simplified versions of history. We must remember that narratives are often shaped by those in power, those with the ability to write and rewrite history. It's up to us to question, to explore, and to uncover the concealed truths. So let's step into the unconventional, challenge the norms, and view the charted with a different lens. Because history is not merely about the past, it's about understanding the present, and shaping the future. If you're intrigued by the unconventional, eager to challenge historical norms, and ready to explore the charted, but with a different lens, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time.